What's up, everybody? It's me, Chris, coming to you. Hope y'all had a good Thanksgiving yesterday. Mine went well. Had some serious back pain I was dealing with, but aside from that, it was all good. So I hope y'all enjoyed yours. Anyways, here to talk about next Wednesday's Bernard Hopkins Roy Jones double bill going down on Versus. Normally I wait till the week of the fights to talk about fights, but it technically is a week. Plus I got a lot of videos to do over the weekend as well. So just gonna get this out of the way. Honestly, there's no whole lot to talk about in these matchups. Basically, this is a showcase for both these guys to get their names out there, back in the public eye, put on good performances to build towards their fight, which is supposed to happen sometime next year. Supposedly the paperwork's already signed, so we're finally going to get that long awaited rematch. Too long at this point, the fight doesn't really hold any weight. Honestly, the reason I believe that fight's being made is because um, for these guys, neither of them can make the money fighting each other that they can make fighting anyone else. I guess you could say the same thing about Pacquiao and Mayweather, but this is different. Hopkins and Jones are both looking to cash out, make some big money, and whereas Mayweather and Pacquiao have a lot more options whether or not they fight each other, Jones and Roy and Bernard don't really have a lot of options out there. So it's either them or just fight nobodies for a lot less cash than they really want to fight for. At their age and their stage in their career, they're not really trying to fight for $100,000, and just fight nobodies. They're trying to make some cash before they call it a day. Although who knows when that's going to be with either of these guys. Anyways, let's get to the fights. Wednesday, December 2nd, on the Versus Network. So we are fortunate enough to get to see both Bernard and Roy fight on free TV. I think that's a pretty sweet deal. Split bill. The Roy Jones fight's going down in Australia. The Bernard fight's going down in Philadelphia. First up, Roy Jones against Danny Green. Roy Jones, record 54 wins, 5 losses. Stands at 5'11" with a 74-inch reach. Roy is up to 40 years old. Probably why I'm not going to call him Roy Jones Jr. He's not much of a junior anymore. Up against Danny Green, record 27 wins, 3 losses, 6'1". Didn't have his reach on BoxRec where I get it, but he's 36 years old. Roy's coming off the win over Jeff Lacey, where Jeff retired after the 10th round. Completely one-sided fight. Before that, Roy had the TKO in 5 over Omar Shika. Both those fights are pretty much the same. Roy absolutely dominated overmatched opponents who are well past their prime. I know you could say Roy's past his prime, but unfortunately for Jeff Lacey and Omar Shika, they were a lot further past their prime than Roy Jones is his. Roy completely picked those guys apart, had his way with them, completely one-sided fights. You definitely see glimpses of the prime Roy Jones in there. And I mean, he looked, if you hadn't seen Roy in his prime, you would think he as fast as he was back then. That's not the case. He was basically just fighting guys that were no threat to him, which is probably why he was fighting them in all honesty. Guys he could look good against. But Roy went in there and did what he needed to do. He completely dominated these guys and shut them down. As for Danny Green, he's coming off back-to-back KOs/TKOs over some nondescript opponents, guys I never heard of, not even going to get in their names. He took a couple years off for a while, retired, but he came back. The one fight that I do want to talk about is his loss to Anthony Mundine. That's the fight that I think projects the most into this fight. Mundine is like a Roy Jones Jr. light version, He's not as good as Roy, he's not as talented as Roy, but he has a similar style. He's got the same kind of athleticism, not as much. He's not Roy Jones on any level in all honesty, but he's similar, and he fought Danny Green. And it was a big fight when it happened in Australia. I believe it was one of the biggest fights. This fight's supposed to be the biggest fight, or one of the biggest fights in the history of Australian boxing as far as financial-wise and stuff and viewership-wise. But that was at the time. And Mundine absolutely just dominated and outclassed Danny Green. Danny couldn't really catch up with him. Mundine clowned him. Those guys really didn't like each other. So, I guess it was kind of an interesting fight unless you're a Green fan. But Mundine just put hands on him, and Green could never catch him. And it's basically what I think this fight's going to look like. I think this fight's going to look exactly the same, although I expect Roy to be even more dominant than Mundine was because, one, he's a better boxer than Mundine, and two, Danny Green's older. Roy may be 40, but Danny Green's 36 years old himself, and he's not exactly a fast fighter, in his prime, so he's going to be a lot slower now than he was then. I expect Roy to just come out there and outclass him, outbox him. I think it will look somewhat like the Lacey and Shika fights. I don't know if it'll be that one-sided, but I do think it will be one-sided. No disrespect to Danny Green and his fans, but I don't think Roy's taking this fight if he saw it as a real threat, especially since he's got that Hopkins fight in his sight. I think this is a showcase fight. Roy's going to go down there and make a lot of money because, like I said, there's going to be a lot of people watching this fight. But I expect Roy to just, use his speed, movement, and pretty much just look like Roy has looked his last couple fights. Just dominate. I don't even expect Roy to get many hands put on him. as he has in the last 2 fights. So look for Roy to win an easy decision here. Don't need to get too much into the techniques of it. If he's really just dominating them and there's no threat, he may look to close the show like he did against Lacey and Shika, or the ref or the corner may throw in the towel. We'll see. Danny Green is a tough dude, I'll tell you that. That's one thing you can't doubt is that kid's got heart. But expect Roy to win a decision here, easy, or to get a mid to late round stoppage. Next up, Bernard Hopkins against Enrique Ornelas, going down in Philadelphia. Bernard's record's 49 wins, 5 losses, 1 draw. Stands in at 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Bernard is 44 years old now. Enrique Ornelas, 29 wins, 5 defeats, 6'1", 72-inch reach, only 29 years old. So the one advantage I can tell you that Enrique has is he's 29, so he's got the youth advantage, obviously. Doesn't mean he has a speed advantage. Not that Hopkins is the fastest fighter, but Enrique is not exactly a fast fighter himself. Bernard's coming off the unanimous decision win over Kelly Pavlik. That was over a year ago. Hard to believe Bernard hasn't fought in a year, but that's the case. Enrique Ornelas, he's coming off a TKO win over some guy I never heard of. Before that, he had the split decision loss to Marco Antonio Rubio, a guy that Kelly Pavlik, coincidentally enough, beat out not too long ago. So as for this fight, honestly, I haven't seen a lot of Enrique. Saw some clips online. I don't know if I've ever seen him fight live. If he's fought on ESPN, I probably have, or versus or anything, but if not, not for sure. One thing I do know, or not, I don't know the exact specifics. I know he's like Librado Andrade's brother. Now, I don't know if they're stepbrothers, half-brothers, or real brothers, because they both used to go by the last name Andrade, and then Enrique went to Ornelas. If you look at their Wikipedia pages, they have both Andrade and Ornelas as their last name, so I don't really know what the dynamic is there, but I know they are related. That aside, not that that plays anything into this fight, that aside, I don't know too much about Enrique. I just want to say typical Mexican fighter, you know, banger, not too technical, got a lot of heart, you know, work rate, but I don't really think he stands much of a chance in this fight. No disrespect. Bernard Hopkins, just a better boxer. Looked great in the fight against Kelly Pavlik. I actually picked Pavlik in that fight. Ain't gonna lie, you know, gotta own up to it. But Bernard just outclassed and schooled Pavlik. You know, he hasn't fought in a year, long layoff, but Bernard is one fighter who is very disciplined, never gets out of shape, even in his prime at middleweight, never got out of shape, never blew up in weight. Very disciplined man. Probably stays around the gym, you know. He's definitely around a lot of the fighters working with Golden Boy Promotions. I could see him mixing it up in there with these guys, you know, during sparring and whatnot. So Bernard's never away from the fight scene, so don't look for him to come in with a lot of ring rust, regardless of his age. Plus, Bernard is in a style where he relies a lot like on speed or power. He's more of a precision, just straight up technical boxer. I mean, they don't call him the executioner for nothing. I mean, they could call him the excellence of execution, like that old wrestler Bret Hart, because that's basically describes Bernard Hopkins' style at this point. Anyways, as for the fight itself, look for Bernard to dominate. I haven't seen Enrique as of late. I don't know how he's looked as of late, but like I said, Bernard looked stellar in his last performance. Look for Bernard to just outbox Enrique. I'm sure Enrique will probably take the fight to him. Bernard will probably play the counter style. Depending on how aggressive Enrique is, depends on how this fight plays out. But I think Bernard should easily win this fight. He's just going to outclass him. You know, once again, no disrespect. But he's just going to pick him apart. Probably work to the head and the body. It'll be interesting to see if Bernard's looking to make a statement in this fight. I'm sure Roy will in his fight, you know, to build up to the pay-per-view or build up to their fight once again, like I was talking about. Should be an easy fight for Bernard, though. Once again, I'm not even going to bother getting into the technique-wise, because anyone that knows Bernard Hopkins knows what he's going to do. Hopefully, he'll throw a few more punches than he has been. Well, he threw a lot in the Pavlik fight, you know, in all honesty. But he didn't throw a whole lot in the Joe Calzaghe fight, which would have been one of the reasons why he lost. But just look for Bernard to win this fight by decision. Enrique's tough, so I don't think Bernard's going to get him out of there. Enrique's got a lot of heart, much like Danny Green, who's fighting Roy Jones. So I expect this to go to a decision, but I expect Bernard to win and look impressive doing so. And then hopefully that fight with Roy and Bernard will get made. As I said, it should be. No reason why it shouldn't be at this point. Not even going to talk about who I think is going to win that fight yet. Got to see how these guys look in this fight. You know, but anyways, be sure and check out the website. There will be bloodfightshow.com, partnersistandandfight.com. My Twitter, if you're interested, you know, I'll put all the links and information part as always. No radio show yesterday, no radio show today. Leave it in the ring radio. We had a special show on Wednesday, Night of the Prospects. We had like 6-7 guys on there. We had John Molina Jr. on there. You can go check that out in the archives if you'd like, or on the website. John Molina Jr. is fighting tomorrow night on Showbox. Be sure and check that out, along with, you know, the Andrade Butte rematch and the Guzman Panica fight. But check out John Molina Jr., young prospect, good kid, a lot of charisma. looking to make a statement in the lightweight division, so keep an eye on him. And that's pretty much it. I'll probably be back on Sunday to talk about not this fight. I'll be here to talk about the Butte fight, but maybe I'll be back on Thursday to talk about this Jones-Hopkins fight, or how the fights go depending on how they look. Anyways, until then, y'all, I'm out. Bye.